The Pittsburgh Steelers, first time with a new offensive coordinator since 2011. The Steelers still the best team within the AFC North. At least that's what I think Brendan Albert is going to say. He is here. I am here as well. We're going to get into the AFC North right now. We're going to start with the Steelers. So first time in 7 years, new offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh for Big Ben.
It's a really interesting one, too. You know, Todd Haley wasn't fired, but they didn't bring him back. Now he's getting, honestly, it seems like the Browns – we'll talk more about the Browns in a little bit, but I'll talk that back. But, yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting situation trading out there. They got a lot of quarterbacks in the room that all at some point in time have said he is going to be the heir apparent to Big Ben, and they have 3 of them on the roster. I don't think they really have a clear answer to which one of the 3 of them it is. And then you have Big Ben. I mean – I'm a Ravens fan, okay? And it's hard for me to not sound biased when I say this, but you might argue that the Steelers are the most underachieving NFL team. Now, granted, because they usually play the Patriots in the playoffs and lose, which so does most teams. Yeah. But, I mean, their team is loaded offensively. They have been a stacked offense. Defense is good, not great, but still certainly good enough to win the division.
Yeah, and they've got, again, back to the new offensive coordinator, and it's Randy Fichtner. And he hasn't called plays since 1996.
Been a minute.
It's been a minute. And this is, again, this is you're a football guy, you're a coach. So I wanted to ask you, 22 years you haven't called plays. Is that a big deal?
I personally don't think so, because it's not like they're in 22 years he's just been hanging out in the street corner somewhere drinking a 40. Like, he's been involved. He's been in the meetings. Like, he knows what's going on. So it's not like he's just completely been in the dark. Yeah, I would say, as far as getting in a rhythm as a play caller, that certainly helps. When you start going hurry up and you can start going chunk after chunk after chunk because you're in a rhythm, yeah, that obviously helps if you've been, calling plays for a couple years. But, no, I don't think it's a huge deal here, Adrian, to be honest.
All right, we'll see if he can improve the offense. Well, they were third in total offense, 8th in scoring, but 18th in red zone efficiency.
Yeah.
So that's not too good.
No, especially not when you say maybe we have the best running back in the NFL. Usually you would say, oh, yeah, in the red zone, you're pretty darn good then. Yeah. If I said you had probably the best receiver in the NFL, you say, yeah, we're pretty darn good then. Well, I mean, they don't really have a true red zone jump ball threat. Martavis Bryant was that guy. Now that's probably going to be Juju moving forward is going to be that. Obviously, Vance McDonald, the tight end position, can also make some things happen in the tight end, in the red zone there. But you're right, Adrian. Their red zone deficiencies certainly would not merit that offense that I would say is pretty darn loaded in comparison to most NFL teams.
Yeah. Let's talk Le'Veon Bell contract situation. So the bar has been set by Todd Gurley. I don't expect the Steelers to ever match it, to be honest. And I'll pose this question to you because I'll see if you agree. I don't think they should pay Le'Veon.
So here's my view. Let me kind of take Le'Veon out of this. Running back general here. Running back is the only position in the NFL that your value actually decreases after your first-year contract. And what I mean by that is your first-year contract, if you're really darn good, you're probably getting 200 carries, okay? Well, then when the next contract comes up 4+ years down the line, that NFL team is thinking, I just have a player who had 4 years of 200+ carries. His physical ability has declined. Even if he is super talented in that window, you also know his physical ability is declining just because of the physical pounding he's taking. So my opinion, Adrian, in general, is these running backs, you draft them high in the first round, and then you don't pay them in the second payday just because of the way that the play declines. I think that's why we're seeing guys like Zeke get drafted high, Leonard Fournette get drafted high, Saquon Barkley get drafted high. There's going to be several guys in this year going to be drafted high, but I don't think we're going to see these guys being paid out as much. I mean, before Gurley got paid, most people didn't know this. Jerick McKinnon was the highest paid running back before Todd Gurley got paid.
Wow.
And that's pretty darn telling because no one would say he's a top 10 back in the NFL. So I would agree with you, Adrian. I don't think you pay Le'Veon Bell, not because he doesn't deserve it, but because his physical ability tells you he's not going to be able to carry up 3, 4, 5 years more.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, you're going to pay $15 million for a running back. I don't like that. I don't think it's a smart move. And you look at this guy too in Le'Veon. He comes off a year career high in targets, already. Not that he's declined. It was more the offensive line, but lowest yards per carry in his career. So it comes off that. And do you think there's going to be an issue with Le'Veon? Is he going to have a poor season now because of this? Because this is all hanging on his head?
I don't think so. I mean, the other thing you got to remember with Le'Veon is he hasn't played 16 games in several years now, whether it's been suspensions or injuries. So, he's not exactly the durability king per se, with the running back position. So I don't think he'll be an issue. If I'm forecasting, I'll forecast this, Adrian. Le'Veon's not re-signed by the Steelers. He goes out to free agency, and I think he signs a massive guaranteed contract on a short-year deal, maybe like a 2-year massive guaranteed, like $20 million a year with the Colts or something like that. A team who got the money to spend, burn the money up for those first 2 years, but don't sign him for like a 4 or 5. Do it for 2 years. I think we're going to see more like NBA type of shorter contracts, a lot of guaranteed money for running backs in the future.
I like that because he's 26, and if you do for like 2 to 3 years, at least you get him out by he's 30. By the time he's 30, and I do think he's going to have a good year. I don't buy like this cloud hanging over his head. I mean, he's motivated to get paid, so he's going to want to do well, obviously. All right, let's move on to the wide receiving core. Obviously, Antonio Brown, best receiver in the league. Would you say yes?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay, all right. Now the other thing, now they get rid of Martavis Bryant. They obviously Juju Smith-Schuster's emergence allowed that to happen. What do you think about Juju? You like Juju?
This is tough, because here's the thing I'll give the Steelers. They are probably the best drafting and best positional team in the NFL for receivers. They're able to get a lot of production out of receivers, and then those receivers don't always pan out long term. Santonio Holmes, another guy I kind of think of back in the day. But this is a pretty good tradition here. I think Juju's going to have a good year. I don't think he's going to have the same production. I think that's just kind of a farce to think. I think the draft pick of James Washington is underrated. I think he's going to make big plays for them down the line, probably steal some targets away from Juju. Yeah. But I certainly still think he's every bit good enough to be like a fantasy wide receiver too.
Okay. All right. Because you know what they say about USC receivers, but you were also the one that were like, well, it doesn't really matter what school they go to.
You draft the player, you don't draft the logo on the helmet.
There it is. All right. Let's move to defense. And, something that you don't really want to talk about with Ryan Shazier because it's just awful to talk about. But unfortunately, the defense took a hit once he was out. And, obviously he's a guy that has missed actually a lot of time regardless. So this is something that the Steelers are used to. But these are the numbers that I've written down. Hold on. All right. So it's when he left, let's see. All right, without Shazier, the final 6 games, 26.7 points per game allowed, 5.1 yards per carry. And this was already after having the worst run defense in 63 years last year in Pittsburgh, 4.397 yards per carry allowed. So without Ryan Shazier, and he's not playing this year, obviously, something I was surprised that they didn't address the linebacker situation. They just kind of kept what they had. Tyler Matakevich, you got John Bostic. Vince Williams is okay, but I'm surprised they didn't do anything.
I agree with you, Adrian. I mean, I think one thing that you and me talked about back in the draft is we didn't see a ton of guys that we really loved as linebackers in this year's draft. So, to fairness, it's easy to say, oh, why didn't you draft a linebacker? Well, if they're not any good or you don't think they're starters, why would you?
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of a fair – I think Rashad Evans probably would have been a great pick there for the Steelers if they would have had that opportunity to take him. I believe the Titans took him before the Steelers, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong.
No,
but
you're not wrong. You're never wrong.
Okay. So, I mean, that would have been an example, and I agree with you, Adrian. Now, when you look at the linebacking core, Bud Dupree is on the one end, TJ Watt on the other end. No more Harrison. You got to get production. I mean, ever since I remember as a kid, I just remember, when you played Pittsburgh, they were going to make you pay defensively. They were physical. They were going to get after the quarterback. And the last couple of years, it's not been the same Pittsburgh Steelers team that we're used to. The big question for the Steelers defensively is, can TJ Watt be a double-digit sack guy? I think he can be. But if you're not getting a lot of help around him, it's easy all of a sudden to slide that tight end, slide the fullback, slide the halfback his way, and force him in double teams because I'm not really fearing Bud Dupree one-on-one.
Yeah. I believe they did lead the NFL in sacks last year. I may have to double check that.
They did, but here's the thing I kind of caution. Cam Hayward had a career year at his defensive end position. He doubled his total sacks in a single season. So, yes, they were fantastic as a team in sacks, but I don't think Cam Hayward all of a sudden, who's a guy who's in his, I think, young 30s now, is going to be a double-digit sack guy the rest of his way. He's never been one except for last season. I just have a hard time thinking he's going to consistently be that. He's probably more of a 5 to 8 sack range guy than a 10 to 13 guy.
Okay. I'm with you on Bud Dupree. I do like TJ Watt a little bit. I think I said – no, I did say TJ Watt. I thought I said JJ for a second. I do like – and then Anthony Chickalo is like a third guy in the rotation. I think he's solid as well. But this is they're going to get pressure from blitzing, zone blitzing, and stuff like that. So those are the things that they do. Secondary, we look at the secondary now. Joe Hayden pickup. I thought that was okay for them last year. When he missed time, that's actually another time when the Steelers struggled defensively. So secondary is okay. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Joe Hayden there. I mean, one thing we got to remember here is they got Joe Hayden in the middle of the season, right? Yeah. If you got a starting corner at the start of the offseason, you would say, okay, that's pretty darn good. You get a starting corner in the middle of the season, that's fantastic. Yeah. So for the Steelers' perspective, that's really good there. Safety's been a little unique. Artie Burns, up and down, kind of roller coaster there for him.
And then a strange draft pick, too.
Very strange draft pick with Tramel Edmonds, a guy that when they drafted him, most people kind of looked around. They're like, okay. Even if you listen to like Mayock or anyone, they were like, that's one way to go. You know, I think everyone liked him, but everyone liked him more in those mid-tier rounds, not a first-round pick.
Yeah. Yeah, so they brought in Joe Hayden, and this has been a secondary that's kind of struggled since Ike Taylor's retired, so it's good to get him. And the stat that I had written down, so he missed 5 games. He didn't play in 5 games, and 8 of the 13 40-plus yard receptions were allowed in those games that he missed. So just, I got nuggets for days. There you go. All right, Pittsburgh Steeler nuggets, baby. What? There's nothing else to talk about the Steelers, right? I mean, it's like just basic bullshit every year. They're gonna go like 11-5, 12-4. I have 11-5.
I have them slipping a little bit this year, going 10-6, still winning the division, but I just think the team's starting to go down. The thing
I do agree with you there. It's like a slight decrease.
It is, but the crazy thing is I don't think any of the other 3 teams in the division are all of a sudden like quickly climbing. I think
that's
they're
why
all
I have 11-5.
I get that. If you're thinking they're going to go 4-2 in the division, I think that's fair. I think they go 3-3 in the division.
Okay.
I think they're going to lose 1 to each of the 3 other teams in the division this year. But if you think they go 4-2, I see the 11-5.
I think Cincinnati stinks.
I think that's fair too. I mean, I don't love anything about any of these teams, to be honest with you. So I'm more gifting Pittsburgh the division because I have the most confidence in them. But with that, the one thing I'm curious about is what's going to happen with the quarterbacks. They have 4 quarterbacks on their roster right now. They're not carrying 4. They might not even carry 3. They might go in with 2. So I'm really curious, if in the next couple of days, we saw Brett Hundley get traded today. Does Josh Dobbs get traded? Does Landry Jones maybe get traded? Or do one of them get released? I think that's very likely to happen in the near future.
Yeah. I do agree, though, like a slight decrease. And this is a team, again, it's like they go 10-6, 11-5, 12-4 every year. But because of this slight decrease, I think they're going to lose their first playoff game, whoever they play. I just don't like this team anymore. There's something missing. This defense just isn't scaring me.
It's not. I mean, it's not the Steelers of old. And, I mean, offensively, they absolutely can't put up 40 points a game. But I can't trust a team to put up 40 points a game throughout the playoffs. And I think the defense is going to let up 20 points a game. And I just don't have enough confidence in them to say this is going to be a team who's going to be a true threat in the AFC to beat the Patriots. But at the same time, we talked about this in the AFC East show. I don't really love any of the teams in the AFC in general.
Yeah. And again, that's why like it's an 11-5 record, but they're like a 9-7 team.
Yeah, that's fair.
That makes sense. Okay.
Fair.
All right, next team. I'm going to go to Cleveland first. Cleveland is sexy to me. I'm intrigued by Cleveland. I don't think they're going to be very good. I don't have them winning a bunch of games, but I'm intrigued. Let's start with the front 7. Usually we start with the offenses, but I think they have the most underrated front 7 in the NFL. And you can also make the argument that they have the best linebacking core in the NFL. What do you think about that?
Ooh, that's a good one. I wouldn't say best linebacking core in the NFL. I still like the Panthers a little bit more, but I mean,
you're probably right.
Michael Kendricks did openly say in Hard Knocks that talent in that linebacking crew was much better than he had in Philadelphia, which is something I wanted to know if you took a little slack to that.
Is that what he said? Did he say linebacking crew? Was that the context of the quote?
No, you might have been right. He might have said the talent in here is crazy. It's the best I've ever been. Let me pull the quote up. But Adrian, you as an Eagles fan, do you take a little slight to that?
Well, I did a video on it, but it's more comedy than anything. He's salty. He went from Philadelphia to Cleveland. I'd be salty too.
Yeah, I mean, here's the other thing I'll say. What do you expect him to say?
Well,
honestly,
he's pumping his team up.
What do we expect these star athletes to say? Man, my team sucks. I had it so much better 2 years
ago. He's motivating his team. There's nothing wrong with it. He just brought the Eagles up unprompted.
I mean, look, I get it. I'm cool with it. Same thing with like Jalen Ramsey. Am I supposed to say, man, every quarterback in the NFL is so much better than Blake Bortles? No, of course not. He's not going to say that. Like, we have to go into realistic expectations. Of course Kendricks is going to say, and you're right, Adrian, the Browns have more talent than the Eagles. Of course he's going to say that. He's not going to be like, oh, no, this team sucks and I'm going in for a rough year. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. But, yeah, that linebacking core, you got Joe Schobert there, Christian Kirksey, Jamie Collins, a really, really good trio. Yeah. And I'm really curious to see the leap and bounds that Myles Garrett takes in his second year. He's looked like a beast in the preseason.
He has, yeah. That's certainly a great point there. You put him and Jamie Collins opposite on the edge. Woo. That's pretty good. That's pretty darn good there in Cleveland. Defensive backs, not great. Let's kind of go that end. Mm-hmm. I could not stand the number 4 pick for them. Couldn't stand it.
Oh, yeah.
I was so frustrated. As someone who just loves good football, and I just love teams doing – couldn't stand it. Go get Bradley Chubb, man. He's sitting there on the board. Go do it. And if you didn't want Bradley Chubb, then trade back and get your guy at 5. Because, the Colts or whoever was at 5, I think it was the Colts, They were going to take Nelson. So you could have traded back to 6 and still got your guy. I was so broken up about that. And I was just like, man, though here's the way I look at it. I think you and me, Adrian, would probably agree. Bradley Chubb's probably going to be an all-pro the next 2 of the next 4 years. Fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that Denzel Ward is going to be an all-pro the next 2 to 4 years?
No.
Neither do I. And that's essentially what it comes down to. Yes, good corners are hard to find. I get that. But if you have a guy who you think 50% of the next 4 years will be an all-pro potentially, why would you not take him?
By taking Bradley Chubb, you get Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware. That's how the Broncos won a Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
I mean, whatever. Look, I don't hate John Dorsey. I like John Dorsey.
I agree. Yeah.
I like what he's kind of doing, actually. They've been trading away a lot of draft picks. Usually, I don't like that sort of thing. But for Cleveland, it's a little bit different. And that's a team that's never really hit on their draft picks. So they're like, okay, we're going to do a little bit something different now. So they acquired Tyrod Taylor. They acquired Demarius Randall. They make all these moves. What did you think about what they did? Are you in agreement with what John Dorsey did?
Everything except for 4. I didn't like that, and I didn't like Nick Chubb. Those were the 2 things I took a lot of issue with. Mm-hmm. If you want to tell me that Carlos Hyde, who is coming off a career year, which I will give him, but has almost never played full 16 games,
always hurt,
is going to be your future running back, I'm not buying what you're selling there. And Nick Chubb, I don't think he's ever going to be a superstar. So why would you spend a second on him when you could have waited and gotten Royce Freeman or just another running back later, and maybe in the second you go and get, I don't know, another linebacker or another, skills player or something. I had no problem with the Baker pick at 1. I know a lot of people did, but here's the way I look at it. And exactly like you said, Adrian, the Browns have been keep trading back. And that's when we talk about, you traded out of Watson, you traded out of Wentz. Sometimes you got to step up to the plate and just say, look, this is our guy. Maybe he's not necessarily the best overall player, but we're not going to trade back and get cute. We're going to take him and move forward. So if they really think that with Baker, fine. I'm cool with that. But the 4 pick, Adrian, was where I had issue. I had a big issue with Chubb. Love the Jarvis Landry move. Love the Demarius Randall move. I think they did all the right things in the offseason, but not a perfect grade, but a very good grade.
And another pick I didn't like was Austin Corbett at 33. Like, that's a little high.
Yeah, I would agree with you because if I remember correctly, and Adrian, tell me if I'm wrong, wasn't our big boy Hernandez from UTEP still on the board at that
Yes,
time?
he was.
Okay.
Yes, he was.
That's where I have the issue. I'm cool if you want to draft an offensive lineman and you want to build a giant wall in front of your quarterback. I'm cool with that. But you picked the wrong one, in my opinion. What do I know? But Will Hernandez, everything you are seeing and hearing about him, people are saying, yeah, he's all that in a bag of potato chips. So they just picked the wrong one to me.
Yeah. Well, he could have been taken, this Corbett guy from Nevada, he could have been taken third, fourth round, I think. But maybe, hey, if they liked him that much, whatever. Okay. Let's see. What else do I got in my notes? Okay, let's talk about the offensive line because obviously Joe Thomas is there, retired now. Looks like Joel Bitonio is going to make the jump to left tackle. I like him a little bit. I think he's kind of underrated. They signed Chris Hubbard to play right tackle, kind of like a do-it-everything guy that was with the Steelers. The offensive line has always been one that's been kind of underrated in Cleveland, but now with Joe Thomas's departure, are they still up there?
I think they're still up there. I mean, when you have a guy who was a Hall of Famer retire, it's going to be tough. I mean, you don't replace those guys every day of the week. I still think they're a good offensive line, but to be honest with you, with the Browns, no one has ever cared about the offensive line. It's been about the guy who's taking snaps under center and what else can they do on offense. I think the quarterback room's in a really good spot. I like Tyrod Taylor a lot. I would take him more than Joe Flacco, to be honest with you. I honestly would. And I like Baker. I like Baker's upside. I think he's looked good so far in the preseason. And I'm one of those people, I like the moxie. I like the fact that he's got the right level of prick in him. I think that's good, especially if you're uptime like team who needs that in Cleveland. I'm totally cool with the quarterback being that.
Well, I definitely ranked Tyrod Taylor ahead of Joe Flacco in my quarterback rankings. That definitely happened. He only had 6 turnovers last year. So he's a guy that just doesn't turn the ball over.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty good.
Would you take Taylor over Andy Dalton?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so right there you're saying at best or worst case, the Browns have the second best quarterback in the division, and he might be second quarterback on the roster.
Yes, they do.
For Cleveland, that's great. I mean, that's an awesome situation. I think Baker's in a good spot, too, to kind of move into this. But here's what's interesting about the Browns. I think their offensive coordinator and their defensive coordinator are essentially getting tryouts to be the next head coach.
Well, Hugh Jackson's been the one that's always called the plays, and he relinquished those duties to Todd Haley.
Well, you need to because you need to have a scapegoat to fire in case things go really bad.
Yeah. All right. Last nugget before we kind of get into predictions here, because I talked about the defense earlier. They jumped from 31st to 7th in run defense, 142.7 to 97.9. So that kind of goes back to that underrated front seven. And even some of the guys, I mean, we talked about, the linebackers and stuff, but it just everybody on that front seven is pretty underrated, I think.
I would agree with that. I mean, it's hard for me to say that they're going to be anything worse than they were last year.
Yeah. So you got a prediction for them?
Well, Vegas has got them at 5.5. This is tough. 5.5 is a tough one to say with a team who's won one game in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I'm going to give them 5, so I'll take the under, but I think that 4 to 5 range is probably realistic. If Baker comes out and he's on fire, maybe they get to 7 wins, but I don't think anything more than that. That's a reach to me at tops.
Yeah, so 5.5, that's a good number. I have 5-11. That's what I have.
Okay.
So there's improvements. I think they're going to be a fun team to watch. I think they're better than Cincinnati. So best team in Ohio.
Well, let's stay in Ohio then, Adrian. Let's talk a little bit about the Bengals here. Okay. Bengals. I'll let you kind of lead off here.
So your Ravens must be so vanilla and boring that we're going to go to them last.
Let's worry about them last.
Well, I didn't write much down about Cincinnati, but here's what I will say. Cincinnati fans gave us a lot of flack last year, and we were right. We're always right. So the offensive line, it stunk. As we predicted, we said it was going to stink mightily. But you see, fans of teams, they like to be biased and stuff like that. So unfortunately, I always like the people that go, well, I'm a Titans fan. I'm a Steelers fan. So I know more than you. No, you don't. You're just biased. You can't hide behind your bias? Just a little.
It's hard not to. I mean, we all do it as fans. Fan is short for fanatic. I totally get that. You're like, well, I see everything more frequently than the general person, which is definitely true. But the problem is you only see that. Yeah. So if you're only seeing that in a controlled environment, it's hard to kind of say, well, what does it look like comparatively? Now, let's talk about the offensive line. 2 big moves there. Billy Price, first-round draft pick at center, who I think is an absolute stud. I think that was a fantastic pick by them. Yep. Cody Glennon. I think he's an older guy, yes, but look what the Rams did when they brought in an older left tackle there, and it still solidified it. So I think that's a good move. They're able to move those tackles into the guard position now, which where they should have been all along. They just were playing tackle for lack of options. Offensive line, I will say this, Adrian, it's gotten a lot better than it was last year.
Yeah. People in Cincinnati just completely underestimated the departure of Andrew Whitworth. And, they were trying to tell me, Cedric Aboyi, he's going to be great. Jake Fisher, he's going to be great. I'm just like, listen, I know all 32 teams. I know all the offensive lines. I've watched enough football. These guys aren't good. Sorry. They're just not going to be good. And they said that they would tell me at the end of the year when they went like 10-6 that, he'd let me know, and it didn't happen. So there you go. All right. Joe, how did we not get into Marvin Lewis to start? Why is he still there?
He's the second longest tenure coach in the NFL.
And, of course, he has two new coordinators in tow. Of course.
Second
of course. He's got
longest
scapegoats again.
It's unbelievable. Most people wouldn't think about that, but he's been there for so long. And with all due respect, I mean, he's won the division, twice? I think they've only won the one division twice. I get it. The Steelers are pretty darn good. The Ravens had a pretty good run there too. But if you're the second longest tenure in the NFL, you should probably have more divisional wins and playoff wins than you shouldn't. But I will say this: if we're going back, that Steelers game, that playoff game, that was a bloodbath, and that was a really damning time. But the thing that surprised me most, Adrian, is the Bengals really made no moves this year to challenge Andy Dalton at quarterback, which really surprised me. And they bring in Matt Barkley here, Jeff Driscoll, Logan Woodside was a late draft pick out of Toledo, but there's really no heir apparent, no real challenger for Andy Dalton. I said it that I thought this was a team who sneakily could make a move for Lamar Jackson because quarterback, you know what you're getting in Andy Dalton. He's probably going to throw you 24 touchdowns, maybe 12 interceptions, and be average at best quarterback. But that offense for years was loaded and just couldn't get things in gear.
I guess they've been kind of stuck because they've been kind of middling in the 7-9, 8. They were a playoff team for a couple years, and then now they're back to being like 8-8 or whatever. So you're not picking in the top 10, so you're not bad enough. And maybe that's why they're not drafting quarterbacks. I don't know. But the fact that Andy Dalton is still on the roster, how long has it been now? 6-7 years of this?
Ooh, it's a good question. Let me pull it up really quick. I think you're right, Adrian. I think
forever.
Yeah, he's been there for a minute.
And he still stinks.
Andy Dalton has been with the Bengals for 8 years now.
Oh!
Yeah. I would be shocked if we don't see the Bengals pick a quarterback in the first 2 rounds of next year's draft. Well, I would absolutely be shocked.
I think they're going to be bad. I don't think they're going to be good. I have 5-11, just like Cleveland. So they'll be picking in the top 10. They'll be getting a quarterback.
Okay. I will say this. Offensively, you got A.J. Green, who is a still fantastic receiver. Mm-hmm. Tyler Boyd, he's a starting receiver in the NFL. I don't think he's anything great. John Ross is the question mark. I mean, he looks great on Twitter. He looks great on
he always looks great on Twitter.
I mean,
that's what highlights do.
Here's the only thing I'll say. When you go back and you watch that highlight tape, guys, of when he made that run against the Bills, notice that he had to slow down to catch the football. Yeah. That's not a good look for your quarterback. If you got a dude who's got burning speed and he has to slow down, tells me 2 things. One, the obvious. Doesn't have the arm strength. And you know what? Andy Dalton's never had an elite arm strength, and he's been able to get by, which is fine. But it also tells me that he was open for a while before Andy Dalton let it rip. Yeah. So that's kind of where I would have more of a concern.
Are you saying that John Ross needs Josh Allen.
Oh, I mean, look.
Now that would be a pairing right there.
That would. I mean, look, Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill.
Yes.
Similar situation. Now, running backs, I'll say this. I wouldn't be surprised to see Joe Mixon have a beast year. Wouldn't be surprised.
Well, their offensive line was so bad last year. That's why he struggled.
Exactly. I could 100% see Mixon finish in like the 5 to 8 range, I would say, for fantasy running backs this year. And Gio Bernard is still a capable third down back. He got a new contract there in Cincinnati, so he's obviously part of the long-term plans. Mm-hmm. He's a good third down receiver out of the backfield. Yeah. Offense, I like it, don't love it, but I would say it's a very good offense. It shouldn't be an offense good enough to put up 30-plus points a game.
Cordy Glenn, left tackle. Clint Bowling's your left guard. You got Billy Price. You just run off the left side.
I mean, look, that's a huge upgrade there for Cincinnati.
Oh, it is. Oh, because Cedric Boy was just awful, man. I mean, that's left tackle, one of the most important positions in your football team. You got a guy that's getting beaten like a drum.
Yep, absolutely. So, absolutely.
Glenn was a great get for them. So if I have 5 wins, how many do you have?
Defensive side of the ball, I like him a little bit more. So this is a large reason, Adrian. I'm giving them 7 to 8. I think 7 to 8 wins is where I'm going to see them. Defensive, they remind me a lot of what we talked about with the Dolphins. Good defensive ends. Let me kind of give you them. Carlos Dunlap, Michael Johnson, Jordan Willis from Kansas State, who I really liked, Sam Hubbard, they drafted out of Ohio State, Carl Lawson out of Auburn. Then you get on the inside, Geno Atkins, incredibly underrated, doesn't get the respect he deserves. Andrew Billingsley there from Baylor. That front four is pretty darn good, and they're deep at defensive end. I think the defensive line is very, very underrated there for Cincinnati.
Yeah, Carlos Dunlap and Jordan Willis are players. They are players. Yeah, and I'm with you on Geno Atkins. Geno Atkins has been doing this now for a decade.
Yep.
So he's always been up there. So there you go. And then, I mean, if you want to run down the rest of the guys. So the secondary there, the guy that I really like is William Jackson. That's my guy, the Houston kid. I guess that goes back to, an American Athletic Conference bias.
Right, absolutely.
Because I like him, and I like Griffin out in Seattle too. So I don't know, maybe that has something to do with it. But William Jackson, I like him a lot.
Yeah, I mean, my defensive back, and I know I'm going to be pounding my chest if and when he hits, and if he doesn't hit, I'm going to be hiding under a rock. Jesse Bates from Wake Forest. He was my guy. I said from a free safety perspective, I love him. I think he's fantastic. I think there's a large reason there. The Bengals decided to release their starting free safety, let Jesse Bates come on and take that spot. So defensive backs, pretty good. I would take their defensive backs as a unit probably over Pittsburgh. I think in this, if you ask me one or the other, I think I would take them. Now that said, they're also younger, so they probably have more upside, which is why I'm taking them. Defensively pretty good. Like I said, Adrian, 7 and 8 wins where I see the Bengals.
Okay. I see this. The reason why I have 5 and 11, this reminds me of Andy Reid's last year in Philadelphia. Andy Reid got like one last season. He installed 2 new coordinators, and it just didn't work. The team just kind of quit on him. And we'll see. But I do like Terrell Austin, the defensive coordinator. In Detroit, he had 32 takeaways with that defense, third most in the NFL. You look at Cincinnati's defense last year, 27th in turnover differential. So defense that needs to get a couple more takeaways.
You're 100% right there. I think, to be fair, Adrian, if the Bengals lose early, you could very easily see this be a team that mails it in and just completely spaces out on their head coach. Your Andy Reid analogy, I think, is unfortunately very fitting for what potentially could happen here in Cincinnati.
That's why I have 5 and 11. It just reminds me of that. I just think they're going to stink. I just think it's going to be a disaster of the season. Just clean house. I'm sure restart, new coach, new quarterback, do everything.
Yeah.
There you go. All right, we're on to your Ravens now. We spent way too much time in the Bengals. I wasn't going to spend a lot of time in the Bengals, but you like them more than I did. So
I think it's also because I'm trying to not talk about the Ravens.
You don't want to talk about the Ravens.
No.
You don't like the Ravens this year at all.
No. No.
So if I have 8 and 8 for them.
That's kind of
nice.
I have them 5-7. I have them as the third team. And I say this now here. All right, hear me out, okay?
Go ahead. You're the Ravens fan. You would know.
If we sat down on the schoolyard and you and me, Adrian, did a draft, I think we both would draft more Bengals players than Ravens players. So as a roster, definitely more talented in Cincinnati.
There's some guys I like on the Ravens. I like C.J. Mosley. I like Brandon Williams. I like some guys.
Defensively, I agree with you. Offensively,
okay, all right. Okay.
Offensively, it's such a ragtag bunch. I mean, okay, Michael Crabtree, that was a nice signing. I mean, especially because they didn't spend all that money on Ryan Grant originally, which would have been ridiculous. So that was good. Willie Snead, he's never been more than a nice slot receiver there, especially hit some great years in New Orleans. But I think we both can agree Drew Brees makes guys better. So I don't praise him. John Brown, dude can run. Smoke Brown can flat out spin, but he's always hurt. Okay, so I'm not thrilled there. Offensive line, Ronnie Stanley's looked good, but I wouldn't say he's looked like he's merited his high draft pick that he was at left tackle. Mm-hmm. Marshall Yanda, stud Hall of Famer. Don't need to talk about him there. The rest of the offensive line, Alex Lewis, meh.
Yeah.
I mean, then you have James Hurst at the right tackle, meh. Orlando Brown, meh. I mean, the offensive line is so whatever to me. Alex Collins is one of those guys, when you look at his stats are, 20 carries for 80 yards and a touchdown. But the problem is
fumbles.
He's just getting destroyed, and it's fumbles, and he's getting the ball because we don't have anything else on offense. I mean, the running backs behind him are just whatever. I think Joe Flacco's going to put up a good year, but to be honest, this is another year where Flacco doesn't really have enough around him that I would say would make him have a great year, enough to keep Lamar Jackson at bay. But he should, because Lamar has looked horrible. He's looked so bad. It's been very concerning for me. He's been great athletically, which is what we knew. But as far as a quarterback, he's not ready. He's really not ready this year.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. So I wanted to know, because this logic of the Ravens has been going on forever with these veteran receivers. Why do they do this? Why don't they draft people? I mean, they tried to draft Rashad Perriman.
Maybe that's why they don't. I mean, I don't have an answer for you, but I mean,
Derek Mason, they're always old. They're old. They're like
Derek Mason, Anquan Bolden, Steve Smith, Michael Crabtree. I mean, they even made a run for T.O., years and years ago. But same general idea here. They look for more of the free agent guys who are in their 30s to get them by for 1 to 2 years and then get the next one. You're right, Adrian. Offensively, there's just not much here. They put a lot of stock in the tight end position.
They drafted 50 of them.
I mean, yeah, they're going to have 4 or 5 tight ends potentially on their roster here. Hayden Hurst I like. I will say that. I do like Hayden Hurst, but you had Calvin Ridley on the board, and you took Hayden Hurst. So that was kind of something I was like, I don't –
Calvin Ridley, you signed Michael Crabtree.
Exactly. I didn't love that at all.
Dude, I'm with you, dude. How do you not draft Calvin Ridley?
That one was the big one for me, especially because if you play it back a year, you drafted Marlon Humphrey over O.J. Howard. I much rather O.J. Howard and Calvin Ridley than Marlon Humphrey and Hayden Hurst.
Yeah. So you're gonna laugh at this. I'll have to take a screenshot of a comment that someone left me. Someone said that the Ravens were going to go 12-4 this year.
I would love it, but they got to be the number 1 defense in the league then, and lead the league in turnover differentials. If you can lead the league,
they did that last year.
If you can lead the league in turnover differentials, and you can ask your offense to score 22 points a game, kind of situation, it's possible because the defensive side of the ball is still damn good. But the offense has got nothing that scares me. I mean, just absolutely nothing.
I found out that Greg Roman's on your coaching staff.
Yes, he is.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Baltimore historically has a whole bunch of guys on the staff that you look around and you're like, wait, how long have you been here? Like a lot of times, they had Leslie Frazier for a while as their defensive backs coach. A whole bunch of guys like that.
Yeah, Greg Roman. So I guess he can still churn out the run concepts. he was such a hot commodity only like 3 to 4 years ago, and now he can't even get an offensive coordinator job. That's how crazy how like quickly the NFL can transition from like and that running aspect from when he was doing the read option stuff with Kaepernick to now like it's out of the league now.
Well, I mean, to be fair, you had him, Marty Morningway is the current offensive coordinator there in Baltimore. These are two guys who have experience working with mobile quarterbacks, so it does show that there's potential there for Lamar Jackson to play earlier. But I just really don't think he's ready for it. I mean, I've seen nothing in preseason. No, I just see nothing in preseason for me to think he's ready. And then he's taking a lot of still like, dumb shots. He's doing a lot of stuff. It's like they signed RG3 to essentially be like ghost of Christmas future of what could happen to Lamar Jackson if he doesn't take care of his body. It just doesn't seem like it's clicking yet.
Yeah. All right, well, that defense that you talked about, they did lead the NFL in takeaways last year, 34 plus 17 in turnover differential. I think they have some pieces. I like some guys. I already mentioned Brandon Williams and C.J. Mosley. I think Matt Judon is a guy that emerged last year as well. He had 8 sacks, I want to say, off the top of my head. So you got some guys. The question I have for you, though, is Marlon Humphrey, because I know how much you hated that pick last year. Did he at least play okay? You don't seem pleased.
We're going to find out real quick because Jimmy Smith's suspended for the first 4 games of the season.
Yes, he is.
So we're going to find out real quick where Marlon Humphrey is. Now, talk about the defensive front. Michael Pierce, Brandon Williams, 2 very underrated guys. Now, to be fair, in the 3-4, you're pretty much asking those guys just to be blocker absorbers and let the linebackers run free so you can have your C.J. Mosleys of the world. Kelly Gregg was that for Ray Lewis for years.
Yeah.
No one cared about him, or Tony Saragusa, even when the Ravens were in that dominant Super Bowl win. So they have the pieces up front to let the linebackers roll them free. Judah, as you talked about, Adrian, was a much-needed pass rush guy opposite of Suggs. Suggs is certainly declining, as we all do when we get a year.
He's bringing it, though.
But he's still bringing it. He's still a starter there. The safeties, pretty darn good. I'm pretty happy with them still here. Tony Jefferson, Eric Weddle, both a little getting older every day too, but they're still very good. And then my favorite nickel cornerback in the NFL, Travion Young from Temple.
Travion Young, baby.
He's been all that in a bag of potato chips. Missed the whole season last year with an ACL, but did have several blocked kicks his rookie year and played a lot in the nickel slot. That's something that's a really underrated thing. But when you play Pittsburgh and you play Cincinnati, who's going to go a lot of 11 personnel, you got to have a good nickel, and Baltimore has that. I hear you, Adrian. I buy what you're selling about the turnover differentials. I just can't see it on offense. But to be honest with you, I haven't been able to see it on offense the last 3 or 4 years, and Baltimore has still been a team who's been in the wild card hunt. So if they win 9 games, I wouldn't be surprised. But I think realistically, they're probably in that 5 to 7 win range.
Okay. All right, well, I do have 8-8. That's second in the division. You do have to remember, too, you think Cincinnati's going to be better than I do.
I do.
So I have them sweeping Cincinnati and sweeping Cleveland, so that gets part of the 8-8 there. When I finish all of my player rankings and my team rankings, I'm curious to see where Baltimore fits in the scheme of things. So there's that. We got to get into stuff that I forgot to fill out. So underrated players, hot seats, fantasy players. Let's start with underrated. Who's the most underrated player in the AFC North?
This is a tough one for me, Adrian, because I don't want to say a Baltimore player because I don't want to come off as biased. So I'm going to go Myles Garrett. And I know people are like, dude, he was the number 1 overall pick. Yeah, I get that. I understand he was the number 1.
A lot of people were calling him, using the buzzword. Like, they didn't think he was going to be motivated.
And that's why I say he's underrated, because people would say, oh, he's number 1 overall. And then people said, well, he's not living up to it. I think we're going to see 13 plus 14, 15, 16 sack a year from him. I think he's going to be an absolute dog this year. So I'm going to give him the underrated term, mostly because people weren't giving him that he can shut down the side of the line like we talked about way back when we did his review. Yeah. I really, really love him. I think he's underrated. If not, I'm just going to go the defensive ends from Cincinnati because they're deep there too.
Yeah, Carlos Dunlap would be a good one. Now, I'm doing this off the top of my head, so I'm flying off the seat of my pants. I'll go with either. I'll go with Cleveland. I'll look at Joel Bitonio, even though he's going to be left tackle now, so it's a little different. Because he's making a position change, I'll go with Schobert, linebacker, Cleveland. Nobody even knows who he is, and he was on the Pro Bowl last year, so as a rookie.
Love it.
So there it is. Christian Kirk. So you could put the whole linebacking core in there. Hot seat, since you don't like to use the word overrated.
Hot seat. Ready for this, Adrian? We potentially could see, it's not going to happen, but we potentially could see all 4 of these teams fire their head coaches next year.
Ooh.
I don't think it won't happen. It won't happen.
Yeah.
But every one of these head coaches is potentially could get fired. Cleveland is the most obvious one. We know that's in all likelihood going to happen. I think if Cincinnati doesn't make the playoffs, they fire Marvin Lewis. Mm-hmm. And Mike Tomlin, I don't think he should be fired, but I also understand if someone were to tell me, look, Pittsburgh's had the most offensively talented offense in the AFC the last several years, and they haven't been able to win a Super Bowl. If that was your reason for firing Mike Tomlin, I could buy that. And Coach Harbaugh in Maryland there, the Ravens, hasn't done much since they won that Super Bowl. It's been a slow decline. So my hot seat, maybe every head coach here, if you find yourself at the bottom, you might be fired.
All right, Marvin Lewis is the easy one. Andy Dalton's the easy one. I'm trying to think of other ones. Let's see. I'm just gonna look at some rosters. See, I'm just wait. See, I got to do the research before I come on. That's a given. I'll just go with Marvin Lewis. There's the easy answer.
It's not a wrong answer. I mean, sometimes
that's the easiest answer.
When you sit down at the Vegas sports books and you see an obvious one, you're like, yeah, I'm gonna put money down on that.
Yeah. Fantasy player. Who do you like in the AFC?
David Njoku, man, tight end here for the Cleveland Browns. I think he's going to be a monster this year in the red zone because you look at Jarvis Landry, he's obviously a PPR machine. Yeah. Red zone, not really there. Josh Gordon, maybe he's a stud still. Maybe he's out. I don't think any of us really know. So the red zone becomes, who do you go to? David Njoku is my guy. So he would be my guy if you're drafting and you don't get one of those top 3 or 4 tight ends and you're thinking, I would just wait, and I would take David Njoku a little bit later. I think he's going to have a great year. Okay.
I think Joe Mixon's probably a good get. Now, I've only done one fantasy draft, and I really haven't looked at fantasy rankings. The way I do my fantasy draft, I have my own rankings, and I just kind of do it the way I do it. But Joe Mixon, I'll go with that. Since we talked about the left side of the offensive line, I think people might be kind of like putting him under the radar now because of the season he had last year. So I'd say Joe Mixon. I don't know where he's going in drafts, but he could be a guy you might want to get. All right, that's it. That's the AFC North. We're done.
That's it. So in review, guys, I got the Steelers winning it. I got the Bengals in second. I think the Bengals in second. I think the Ravens in third, and then the Browns in fourth.
Okay, so we have a little differentiation. I've got the Steelers, and then the Ravens, and then the Browns, and then the Bengals.
Fair enough.
There it is. All right, that's Brendan Albert. I'm Adrian Fedke. See ya.
Appreciate it.